So, morning, everybody. Nice to see you. Thank you very much for joining me on our half-term webinar. My name's Phil. For those of us that have not met before, I'm behind Life Talk, the world's longest-running online community in financial services. We've got another one just coming in. Bear with me, people. This is we let a few people as they arrive. And I've been in the industry for 45, 47 years, something like that, and one aspect of financial advice that has obsessed the whole industry and now the profession is, of course, technology. And the common theme to the technology side of the industry and the most asked question and the biggest complaint from financial advisors over all those years is why doesn't all this stuff talk to each other? Why do we have to use this? And why doesn't this connect with that? And why doesn't that connect with this? Um, and I believe we're now pretty well there that we've got to a point where with tools like Marloo and others, we're getting to a point now where you can have one bit of software that you log into and everything talks to each other, which is just wonderful. Now, this is about our sixth or seventh interviews with AI providers. Hope you don't mind me called a provider. Um,
Good.
and all the names that everybody now knows. But Marley wasn't included last year because we'd never heard of them. They didn't seem to exist. And now, wherever I go on the internet, I'm pursued by adverts for Marley. So you get a point for marketing, no question about that, and getting visibility. And what's also happening, and certainly in places like Live Talk, you are being talked about, which in a closed advisor community is not always seen as a good thing. But in your case, a lot of people are talking very, very positively about you, which is absolutely fantastic. So, Jack, welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Now, a lot of people may not realize that you actually used to be a financial advisor. Just tell us about that and
Yeah.
how you see the difference between then and today.
Yeah. I basically came fresh out of uni. Wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, but did a degree in economics. So I think as any kind of 21-year-old at the time, I just kind of sprayed the target across the financial services space and fell into advice. I then spent about 5.5 years working directly within financial advice. Within that period, I spent about 2 years working specifically on new business workflows. So first point of meeting a client all the way through to having assets on board and everything in between, like client communication, drafting advice, cash flows, presenting cash flows, things like that. I also help support a client bank worth kind of 400 million in AUM. And I think that gave me a really good kind of like technical background in terms of, all of the different planning areas and things like that. I'm obviously also a chartered financial planner. I came first in the UK in the CII Advanced Diploma, but it also opened my eyes very much to where there are a lot of inefficiencies. Like I'm sure, like many of the people listening on the call, there were so many things that actually kind of frustrated me in terms of being able to execute on my role. If you take, for example, a new client, you can meet with the client and not have the advice implemented until, like 5, 6 months down the line, which in
Mm.
my view is just, it's not really acceptable as a client who wants to receive advice. And I think it actually feeds into the perception of what the industry has potentially struggled with over the last kind of like 20 years or so, whereby you've got these huge amount of people, was it 91% of people who aren't receiving advice at the moment, but a huge fraction of that simply just don't see the value and they think that it's kind of like only for the high net worth people or whatever it might be. And so I think really what we're trying to do is solve for that kind of gap.
Mhm. Yeah. Interesting. And it goes a bit deeper as well. There's all sorts of predictions and scenarios around where AI is going to impact the profession. Everything from advisors will be gone soon, right through to the exact opposite, where there'll actually be more advisors doing more complex stuff and doing it faster and so on and so forth. Somebody said to me yesterday, for years, technology and financial advice has been about efficiency. AI feels different because it's not just changing how advisors work, it's starting to change what it means to be an advisor.
Yeah, 100%. I would even take that kind of one step further, that it's not just about like the time and cost savings. AI is getting so advanced now, whereby every single conversation you have with that client and every single bit of context that you have on that client becomes available to feed through into the next like stage of the advice process, which is obviously
Yeah,
generating the advice. But if you then take that even one step further, the next time you come to review that client or you do another advice piece, you're starting off at such a stronger base point because you've got all of this context available to you. So it's all about just leveraging AI to pull out as much information from that client file as possible so that when you actually generate a piece of advice, it's actually more bespoke. Like you're picking up on small things that the client said in a conversation that you might have missed.
yeah.
So it opens up doors not just in terms of like efficiency, but it's also, quality of advice as well. And that's directly in line with like the FCA's Consumer Duty that they obviously brought out a couple of years ago. It's like advice needs to now be more bespoke to the clients that you're actually giving it to.
Yeah, and I love that you can look at your business and your data and your clients at a level of depth that's just never been possible for, as you say, about things that got might have missed. To me, one of the beauties of AI is that you can also use it to get more referrals because
Yep.
clients all say things in meetings that are nice to hear, but quite often go straight over our head. And those are the golden opportunities to ask a client, not necessarily outright, great, glad you found that useful. Would you give me a referral? But along that kind of direction of travel, really does pick out things that you've missed. What's also quite interesting is we've got a poll going in Live Talk at the moment. What skill, if you had to pick one, would matter most for financial advisors over the next 5 to 10 years? And I deliberately made it that long because we can't see that far ahead. But
Yeah.
number one, being able to build deeper client relationships, more of a look at where the advisor becomes more of a coach, decision support, the human stuff. But coming in second is using AI, data, and technology much more strategically. And I think we will very quickly go from this just makes us go faster, to being able to think much more strategically about where's our business going in the future. One of the most common questions I get asked is, Phil, which AI should I be using for this task?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, yeah, I get why people will ask that, but really, that's not the way to look at it. It's about looking at your business, what are your plans, what are your goals, and then work backwards from there.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. I also think at the current stage of where AI is, it's developing so fast, don't get me wrong, but it's also probably not quite there yet where it's going to take over
Mhm.
your entire like tech stack and you can run your entire advice journey through whatever AI tool that you use. So it's actually about just identifying like what is the pain point for me and my business. It can just be, one thing that really irks you. It could be a meeting note, it could be querying context, it could be full blown like suitability reports, whatever it is,
Mm.
start there and then you can kind of work your way up. I think that's where the kind of skepticism comes with AI, where it's quite daunting. It's a completely new thing. So I think starting small and like building up is definitely the way to go rather than kind of trying to do everything all at once, I guess.
Yeah, I remember when I was a broker rep back in the 80s, one of the tech questions I was asked quite a lot by financial advisors is, which fax machine should I
Yeah.
be should I be using? So, I mean, along those lines, yes, it's reasonable for an advisor to ask what tools should I be using for this. That's absolutely fine. But interesting, Eugenie said in our group a couple of days ago, surely there'll be a day when Marloo, Saturn, Advisory AI, and Planner Pal all do the same thing. It feels like the playing field is leveling between them. But then what? So at a bigger level, then instead of saying what tool should I be using for, say, suitability letters, I think the question is coming around now. Okay, if we bought into AI, how do we choose a provider?
Yeah, great question. I think like to an extent that is partially correct. Like we're obviously all building similar things, and I'm not oblivious to that fact. But I also think it's about flexibility. Like when when I would be looking at an AI tool, I would be picking a tool that enables me to flex the product so much that I can do essentially what I want to do in my workflow. Because everyone works slightly differently, even between advice firms, not even just advice firms, within advice firms, each advisor might work slightly differently. Power planners could work slightly differently as well. And so it's about picking a tool that you feel comfortable enough to be able to flex and push the product in different directions to fit exactly what you're looking to do,
Yeah.
rather than having to change the way that you work to make AI work, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Yeah. So we found out a little about you. Tell us how Marloo came to be, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so it was founded by Hardy and Shaq, who actually based, well, they're from New Zealand. Hardy lives in the UK. They essentially scaled a retail investment platform in New Zealand that's used by 20% of the population. It's a company called Sharesies. And essentially, as part of their job, like they spoke to thousands of advisors all the time because, they offer investments and things like that. And again, like all of these kind of pain points and problems started to crop up. And so they decided to start a business kind of addressing these pain points, but obviously without kind of having any specific financial advice background. Essentially, what they did is they actually spent a year speaking with advisors solely before we even wrote kind of any line of code. This was before I even joined. So it actually gave us a really good kind of starting point as to, what is it that actually advisors want, getting as many different perspectives as possible and collating all of that feedback to build a tool that's actually for advisors. And I think when I came on board kind of in June 2025, that was the first thing that I was really massive on is like speaking to as many advisors as possible because I've got one opinion on how things should be done, but I'm only one person. And so getting the perspective of people who work slightly differently, who have different processes, that's actually what enables you to build an excellent product. And so, yeah, that's really how it came about, I guess.
Yeah. Just one more sort of philosophizing bit, which keeps coming up in conversations, is where is the line going to be drawn between AI supporting the advisor-client relationship
Totally.
and the AI running that relationship and doing the work?
I think like I'm absolutely massive on like the human and emotional aspect of advice. Like that is a line whereby AI can't do. Like it doesn't understand, like the emotional aspect of making decisions. Like everyone makes massive decisions in their life. And so having a human actually tell you what to do just carries a lot more weight than having like an AI agent tell you. I think that definitely if you look forward in terms of maybe like 5, 10 years, AI has the capabilities to be able to, off of a conversation, um, identify what the advice could be and draft advice automatically for you without you having to give instructions as to what you want done. But ultimately, you would still always have the final say. Like, I'm absolutely massive on this. Like, you've done the qualifications, you've sat the exams, you know the clients as well, like in terms of their context and years of client history. Like there's always got to be a human in the loop, especially in a super regulated space, which this is. Um,
So that's really interesting. So where do you see then the future of financial advice and financial planning? Is it one of the things I said earlier, which was we stay broadly as we are, but we are much, much more efficient, potentially more profitable? Or do you see it coming to a point where, I mean, clearly there are going to be some AIs that will do financial advice, no question about that. But do you see this as a moment where advice firms are starting to look and think, okay, well, what else could we do with our expertise? I mean, that's kind of been my hobby horse for donkey's years, is that financial advisors are wasting expertise that they've built over the years. It just only comes out at a meeting or a one-to-one
yeah,
or whatever. And so do you see things changing in terms of business models?
I think yes. Like I think it comes down to, as I mentioned there, that like 91% advice gap. Like, in my opinion, it's actually a little bit of like a blank statement because it doesn't really dig into like what's the demographic of those people. If I look at that number, I go like maybe that top portion, of people. If you change the unit economics of how advice is given, it lowers the gap down. So those kind of top people will be picked up by, bespoke financial advisors, and so on. But then if you actually look like further down that list, how many of those people actually need tangible, bespoke, ongoing financial advice? And I think AI definitely has a role to fit in there. I mean, obviously, robo advice was like a huge thing that's been
Mm.
discussed for the last kind of 5, 10 years. And maybe it isn't robo advice, but maybe it is like a financial advisor who sits on top of a number of AI agents that gives, really simple guidance and
Yeah,
advice to clients at that level. It's pretty tough to say. I think because it's moving so fast, you can't really, I don't know, like make assumptions on that. But I think for us, like the key goal is changing the unit economics of like that kind of portion at the top of people
yeah,
who actually need bespoke advice but aren't currently getting it.
yeah. There are a lot of people who would argue that the advice gap is a mythical
Yeah.
thing.
Well, yeah, essentially it.
It's just a sector of society that many financial advisors are not targeting.
Exactly. I mean,
Um,
I probably fall into that gap, right? I don't think I need financial advice. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, but you would still, if there's something you're interested in terms of personal finance or some aspect of it, you're still going to use the internet
for
to go
sure.
help you. And if the internet happens to have a bot that can take
For
you a
sure.
certain way down the journey, I mean, if you look on, I can't remember, there's a platform for courses, name escapes me for the moment. And on this particular platform, there are hundreds and hundreds of courses on personal finance and pensions and DIY investments. And these are all chargeable courses. People
Yep.
paying for education. Yes, they could get it free on YouTube, but they'll pay happily for education. And yeah, they'll pay 20 quid, 50 quid, something like that. And to me, there's a massive, massive opportunity for advisors, of which AI will become a key part.
For sure.
So when financial advisors are asking questions out loud in online forums like Live Talk, and the questions are, which tools should I use for this, or which AI provider are other people using?
Yep.
How should they begin to start making decisions around which direction to go?
Yeah, I think it ultimately comes down to the person. I think some people can have a great experience on one tool and they like certain aspects of one tool because it does something, and then they look at another tool and that maybe doesn't do that one thing, and that's an instant, they prefer that tool to that one. Ultimately, with AI, I think it's all about just giving it a go, like trying out the products, seeing which ones you like, which one fits your workflow the best, and that's really going to help just decide. Like when people give demos, they're great because it shows, that the product works and this is how everything works, but it's not really like a real setting. You're not in with a client, like yeah, it's just not the same thing. Like I
Yeah.
always say to people when I give people a demo of the product, like you've just got to try it. The quicker you get to like 2 or 3 summaries, you'll understand whether or not this fits into your workflow,
Yeah,
essentially.
I love that. Give it a go.
Yeah.
Think we go back 10, 15 years and we look at traditional back office providers, the concept of give it a go. Just
Well, you've got nothing to lose. Like, I think from our perspective, like we make it super easy for people to just sign up and get started.
yeah,
And it's on that key ethos of like we fundamentally believe that if you get to like 3, 4 summaries and you understand how the product works, then it becomes a very easy decision of yes, this fits into my workflow and I can
mhm,
see the value here versus okay, maybe this isn't quite what I'm looking for.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, essentially you've got nothing to lose.
So just there will be a lot of advisors who are still sitting on the fence about AI. It's not for me. It's still too early. I'll look at it when it arrives in 5 years' time, all that, those kind of stuff. But really, what a lot of them are saying is we're worried about data and we're worried about compliance.
Yeah.
So give it a go. Uh, Sounds great on one level, but how can you
Yeah.
reassure people about data and security?
Yeah, for sure. I think that encompasses what being a financial advice specific tool is. It's not just about like the quality of output that comes out and like the speed in use, but it's actually understanding and recognizing that you work in a very regulated space. So like where does the data go? Is it stored in the UK? Are you using the data to train on public models? Is it GDPR compliant? Is the data being stored on public models and things like that? And is it used for training by them as well, either like first party or third party? What security and control measures do you have in place? I think fundamentally, like any kind of financial advice AI tool out there should really be able to answer any of those questions.
Hmm.
And if they can't, then it's probably not suitable for the financial advice space, in my opinion.
Yep.
Um, yeah,
Okay. So we better see what you've got, as it were.
sure,
And it'd be interesting if you could start with sort of a high level. What's your approach to how you are, what your offering actually is, and then
sure,
feel free to um, show us how it all works. And you've
sure.
got more than Ian McKenna gave you in terms of time.
Cool, awesome.
Although I
So
love I love Ian McKenna's approach. Like you got 10 minutes to do a demo
I,
and live. So I love that.
one second. There we go. So I think key approach for us is kind of twofold or threefold, I would say. One is how can we take away as much paperwork and mundane and repetitive tasks as possible across the entire advice workflow. So if you take the advice workflow, you've got the meeting with the client, you've got the follow-up, you've got storing that context, you've got the drafting advice, sending advice, implementing of advice, and then the next time you come round, you're starting at a stronger base point because you've got all of that context already stored up. The second kind of ethos is customization is at the core of the product. So fundamental believing is that AI should adapt to how you work, not the other way around. And so it's giving people the ability to flex the product in different way, use tips and tricks to make the product really, really work for them. And then the third is really integrating this kind of like, call it like a chat GPT style interface of like the ability to actually use Marloo as an assistant. So come in, ask questions wherever it might be across a meeting, across a client, across documents you've generated, or even like editing the documents and summaries that you've produced and things like that. So they're probably the three kind of things that I would pinpoint as like key motivators for us. In terms of the actual product itself, there's three features right now. There's the automated meeting note transcription, which essentially does what it says on the tin, I guess. The second is the kind of centralized client record, so the ability to actually start storing all of that context. And it kind of touches on what you mentioned earlier about people waiting for AI to be necessarily ready before they want to use it. I would actually argue that's probably the wrong approach to take because the more context you start getting into these tools and these platforms, the more powerful AI becomes. Like if you've got an agent working across 5 files, you're probably not going to be able to get that much context out of that client profile. But if you've got an agent operating across 100 files, you've now got so much data to be able to actually pick out and surface relevant insights to drive more proactive conversations and so on. And then the third is actually the documents piece. So the ability to convert all of that data and context you've got on the client from meetings, from client context into annual review letters, suitability reports, simple to complex advice. And the key here is actually building a step-by-step integrated workflow whereby everything builds on top of one another. They're not siloed pieces of the product where it's, you've got to start again to generate a document. Everything flows through naturally. And I think the real benefit there is you can say all these metrics of people save 1 hour a day on meetings and they save, a couple of hours generating documents. But that's actually amplified by things moving smoothly between the workflow. Like a huge issue at the moment where people are manually doing these reports through the advice journey is you often end up taking one step back to go 2 steps forward because you have to then review the client file. You've got to look at what was said in the meeting. You've got to try and surface the relevant information to go into the report. You've got to analyze the policy statements and so on. So I think that's also a really key thing for us is like how do you build an integrated workflow? What I'm going to quickly show you first is the templates themselves, because I think this is a part of the product that people love the most. And the crux of Marloo is it works based off of meeting templates or document templates. But as I said, they're all fully customizable. So I could literally click into any kind of template, will give you a base set of default ones and you'd be able to see the exact same context as me, like within the product. So, say for example, I'm looking at this section. I want to make a quick change. I want to make this like a table. I could highlight it. I could come in and say, turn this into a table. Like so, it's going to read that bit of text and it's going to turn this into a table for me, like so. And now I can actually use this when I generate a summary. And this applies to anything. Like I could come down to um, Let's have a look. Again, I could do the same thing here. Like I've got a power planning request here. I could highlight this. I could say, can you please expand on this? And again, like another thing you can do is you can even come into the chat and you could like upload an email summary that you've got before. And you could upload that as context. Marloo will know that's how you structure your emails to the clients in terms of style, tone, preference. And you can instruct it to change the email to match the kind of output that you're looking for. And then obviously once you've made these changes in here, you can now actually use it directly within Marloo. And this works really well because you can even just like build templates from scratch. If I click on add meeting template, I can start from scratch and build my own. As an example, I literally built my own kind of like estate planning discussion template where I've gone through each section. I've said, current position, current assets and liabilities, overview of the family structure, estate planning objectives. And I've given all of these instructions to Marloo. It literally took me like 10 minutes to build this template. And what it is I hear a lot of this misconception about you have to be good at AI to utilize AI, but it's all about end outcomes. Like when you speak with a client and you're going through a cash flow, you know what the discussion points are going to be. You know you're probably going to cover the different like models, the different scenarios you've modeled, what the different assumptions are, and the key outcomes. It's all about just simply telling Marloo that that's what you're looking for, and then Marloo will do all of that legwork for you. But essentially, once you've got this template in here, another thing you can do as well is you can upload files. So you can upload a Word document or a PDF of an output you've sent to a client previously or a meeting note template that you're currently running. And essentially, what we'll do is we've built a template generator. It will take your file, it will read your file, it's multi-layered, it will understand the structural integrity of the document that you need to produce. So headings, subheadings, tables, regulatory risk disclosures. We'll keep that all kind of verbatim, and then we'll leverage AI on all of the variable content. And then if I click into one that I've generated like so, you can see this is what it looks like. So it's an example of a fact find. It looks exactly like this. And then again, once you've got this template in here, you can use it. So if I quickly go back into the meetings tab, just to confirm, it supports virtual meetings, so Zoom, Google Meet, Teams. It works for face-to-face meetings through our mobile app. You can also get phone calls into Marloo as well. Imagine you've kind of had a conversation with a client. It's going to automatically populate in here. This is what the kind of interface looks like. And then it's literally, well, two clicks of a button, I guess. Two clicks of a button onto the summary tab. I can then select any of the templates that I want. So I've already kind of made an amendment to this one. And then it's going to start generating. And you can see that the table that I've changed in the template is now generating as well, like so. And then it's starting to populate. And I think this is the beauty of kind of financial advice specific tools is twofold. First is it can dig deeper than just picking out what was said and who said it. It can draw things from the meetings like points to watch, opportunities, concerns, trade-offs, priorities, and all these things that sometimes can just get missed in the kind of depth of the conversation that you're having. But the second is it doesn't actually matter where something is said in the transcript because we use a template structure. It will take different points in the meeting and map them to the relevant point in the summary. You can see it's still kind of generating like so.
Yeah.
I'm going to let it kind of run out. This is a particularly long transcript. But like obviously the time benefit here is kind of substantial. Like you're generating a meeting summary within kind of a minute or a minute and a half of you actually having the meeting, whereby a meeting note of this depth could take you well over an hour if you're manually typing it up, like so.
I would imagine that if you are a financial planning firm that's got a bit of a niche,
Yeah,
uh, in creating your templates here, you can make them very, very bespoke to the needs of that particular niche.
exactly that. Yeah. You can, that's what I mean. It's like you can flex the templates to essentially do whatever you want. And like if, for example, there's only a little bit here on like vulnerability. If
Mhm.
vulnerability is a massive thing that you want in your template, you can move it to the top, really expand on it in the template, and just give it instructions as to how you want it to build that out, and it will do that for you. Um, that's the whole crux of the product. We can do, as I said here, there like the email drafts and the power planning requests. You can now see it's much more kind of in depth in terms of exactly what we're looking for as well, based off of my
Yeah.
instruction. Just quickly as well to show you the variability and what we can actually do, I'm just going to generate this one here as well. So it's now kind of the same transcript, but it's now an executive summary style of the meeting. So sentence narrative addressing the client directly. The beauty of Marloo is you can store multiple summaries against one meeting. So you could have this as your client-facing note. You could generate the first one, which is a more complete kind of compliance record of the conversation to save on file. And if you've had a review meeting as well, you can do a cool thing where you can actually upload last year's fact find into Marloo as a document, and then have a fact find template within Marloo that matches the exact same structure. You can combine it with a transcript, and it will essentially automate and update that fact find for you on an annual basis based off of the conversation you've had. You can also use this to really expand on the conversation. So if you've gone through performance information, valuation statements, investment market commentary, whatever it might be, you could upload in here as additional context. And then when you generate the summary, it will take everything into account from the notes and then anything in the transcript. The final thing I'll quickly show as part of the meeting notes is all around this kind of ask Marloo anything kind of concept. You can come in here. This actually helps to improve the power planner advisor handover as well. So if I'm a power planner, I can come in here and ask any question about the meeting. I can also get it to help me like draft follow-up emails or anything like that, like so. I can also come in and type any question that I like about that meeting, something like this. And so, really, the whole concept here is giving advisors and power planners the tools to be able to extract as much context from the meeting they've just had as possible. Like the questions could be super basic. It could literally be like, what's the wife's name? What's the husband's name?
Mhm.
But it could also range through to like, what information did I miss? What was their biggest concern? What should I be focusing on my follow-up? Give me a 10 bullet point summary to pass to my power planner. Or if I'm a power planner coming in, it could be what did Jack say to the clients about X, Y, and Z? So again, it has it's like multi-benefited here. What I would say is this is probably the most loved feature on the product. And so essentially what we did is we expanded that into this centralized client record. So essentially all of the kind of meetings that you have with a client will automatically store within here. So you can see this is the one that I just generated. So it's pulled through
Yeah.
here automatically. I can also add notes as well, and I can drag and drop files and folders directly into Marloo as well. So we accept all format types, Word, PDF, Excel with multiple sheets, email correspondence. We've even got an email integration sync coming in due course, which will automatically pull in email correspondence for you as well, PowerPoints, things like that. But it then opens up Marloo across the entire client file. So I can literally come in and ask anything about that client all time. And this is what I mean about having that integrated workflow. Because once you've gone through this process once and you've generated advice for that client and you've implemented that advice for the client, once you come into it next year, you can simply just come into the client file and ask, what was discussed in the last meeting? What should I be concerned about? It then leads to one, a stronger base point to start from, but it also leads to more relevant and proactive outreach and conversation ahead of actually generating the advice,
Mhm.
essentially. And we've even like sourced exactly where we've pulled all of the information from, like so as well.
Yeah.
Again, it's a really similar concept. It's about giving you the tools to be able to now extract as much context from that client file as possible, similar to the meeting level, but just kind of one step further. And then once you've actually got all of that context stored within Marloo, it enables you to now generate a first draft advice report. Key emphasis on first draft. We're not claiming that this report is 100% ready to go and you can just click send. Of course, you still need to review the document. I would expect, or I would hope that people would still review it anyway. Um, but even beyond that as well, if I come quickly into the settings, into the company settings here, we enable people to add their own doc styling. So it means that anytime you export a document out of Marloo, it will come with your custom branding formatting. So headers, footers, headings, subheadings, fonts, italics, bolds, line spacing, table formatting, and so on. We also enable you to upload all of your company files. So any kind of centralized company document that applies across the broad spectrum of your entire client base. So things like fund fact sheets, things like advisor charging schedules, things like key features documents for providers you use. And the benefit here is it means that Marloo will store this as context every single time you generate a document. So you don't need to upload it every single time, which can be pretty annoying.
Yeah.
One quick thing I'll show you as a side piece as well is you can also add words to your dictionary. There are simply some words that AI just always gets wrong. This is literally a prime example. Essentially, what we enable people to do is come in, click on add new, correct a misspelling from and to, and essentially every time you say that word in Marloo, in a meeting, in a document, and so on, it will automatically pull through with the correct spelling. So just a little bit of a neat feature. But quickly to just take you through the workflow and how it works is again, you upload a document directly into Marloo. So either an output or a template that you're currently running or one that you've sent to a client. We utilize the exact same template generator. But the beauty of this is if you upload an output, we'll retain all of the structural integrity. We won't leverage AI on any of the regulatory risk disclosures. So they will remain standardized across every document that you generate, but we'll heavily leverage AI on all of the variable content. So the things like the recommendations, rationale, different client circumstances, we'll leverage AI there, but we'll use the document that you've uploaded as context as to how that document should be filled out. And so it gives Marloo the style, the tone, the structure, the preferences, how you want your advice to look. It also works across policy analysis as well. So if I've got pension policy statements that I want to analyze, if I click into this template, you can see here, um, I've got all of these kind of features of a pension, retirement benefits, death benefits, guarantees, and so on. And I can source that information from the pension policy statement and exactly where that's pulled from, like so. Really helpful for the actual analysis side that goes into generating a report, but also speeding up data gathering. As I'm sure you're aware, pension providers don't often like to provide you everything. So you often have to go back and ask some more questions, and this helps you to surface that information super quickly. But if I quickly go through the workflow, um, I just click on the Documents tab. It's kind of a four-step, super simple workflow. I can just click on plus new document. I search for the client that I want to generate a document for. So I'm going to do it for Robert and Margaret Hayes. I select the template that I want to generate that I've uploaded into Marloo. So I'm just going to do a pretty basic example here. So an annual review letter. And then all of this context is pulled from the meetings, from the clients tab. So I can select whichever annual review is relevant. I'm actually going to pick this one here because it's more of an annual review meeting setting, I believe. And then again, if I click on uploads, all of the files automatically pull through here. I can select all of them. I can remove any that I like. I can also upload more documents as part of the workflow. And if I upload a document in here, it will automatically pull into the clients tab. Click onto the next one. Again, all of the company context is pulled from the files in the settings. So I can just select this one here, click on next, click on next. And then this is the last stage of the workflow. So it's simply an instruction to Marloo as to exactly what you want done here. And I think this is probably the part where people get a little bit worried because they're like, oh, I don't know how to prompt AI. But if I'm honest, you know what the recommendations are. Like, you know how you want the advice to look. If you were telling a power planner to do the advice for you or someone drafting the advice, you would say to them, I want you to draft this advice to do recommendation one, recommendation two, recommendation three, recommendation four in a really clear order. If you tell someone to draft the advice and just say, can you please generate the annual review letter? You're giving a lot of leeway for even a human to go in and decide what the correct approach is. So it's the exact same context with telling AI. You've just got to be super clear and concise as to exactly what you want done. So if I just give a super quick example, I'll paste this in here like so, click on generate. That will put it back into the workflow. So this is now generating. This will probably take about 2 to 3 minutes to generate, I would say. Um, I think like that last step, one caveat there is we are probably going to change that a little bit. We're actually in the process of building out an AI chat agent that would essentially enable you to give an instruction, and then Marloo will actually come back with questions to help it get to a point where it feels really confident in generating a great output. It's just because I would say a lot of the variation that we see in outputs is more related down to like people aren't sure about how to word things to the AI as opposed
Yeah.
to the actual document generator itself.
That's really interesting. The natural language approach is clearly very appealing.
Yeah.
Um, and you could use it, presumably, you could just literally type in how many annual reviews have I got coming up this month, and is there anything in particular I should be conscious of?
Exactly. Like it, but that's like again, that's not a massive change from how you would
Speak to a
operate
human.
your business before.
Yeah,
It's simply like just imagine this as it's an extra person, I guess, like not an AI assistant. Like how would you speak to a person and explain what you want done, what you're looking for, that sort of thing? That's the best way to think about it. AI is all about context. It will work off of the instruction that you give it. If you give a really loose instruction, you're going to get a loose output. If you
yeah,
give a clear instruction as to what you want, you're going to get a really clear output.
yeah.
Um,
Quick question
what's
from
yeah, sorry.
from Lorna. Can we give admin staff access to a read-only version so they can assist with the documents and templates?
Um, Yes, I believe they can do that already. So we don't charge for support staff members. They get full access to the product for free. Main reason being is we don't really believe in charging for non-revenue generating roles.
Hmm.
So yeah, they can sign up, they can sit within your company quickly whilst this is still generating. The benefit of actually logging in under your, like having a company banner with all of your admin staff and power planners in the same team is if I'm a support staff member, I actually have a drop down icon here. If I click on this, I don't have anyone else in this team account, but if I had other advisors in here, I could click into the relevant advisor's calendar. So I could click in here. I can see that person's calendar. I can come in. I can summarize a meeting for them. I can ask questions about that meeting. I can do whatever I like. I could come in and edit the meeting. But to give the advisor an extra layer of kind of security, if you've got a meeting that you don't want your support staff to see, maybe it's a personal meeting or whatever, I can click on this. I can make a meeting private.
Hmm.
It's now marked as private. Doesn't change anything for me. I can still see it. It will still pull through to my clients tab. But anyone else logging in and trying to see that meeting on Marloo just won't be able to see it.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's just completely personal. Um,
Steve said, presumably you can restrict the AI learning from your data, which other tools probably do, as well as the UK. Which other jurisdictions is the data potentially available? He says you mentioned New Zealand earlier.
no, so the data is stored and processed in the UK.
Hmm.
That's the short answer to that. Essentially, like they're basically just from New Zealand, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
So like Hardy moved across to the UK. He operates in London with me as well.
Right.
So that's the
Uh,
short answer.
Carrie asks, not quite sure where you're going with this, Carrie. How does it deal with cash flows?
It's a good question. So I think if there's that's twofold. So if you let's take Voyant as an example. If you uploaded a Voyant report, the data in the Voyant report we'd be able to read. So the tables, the wording, the language, things like that, we could read. Right now, there's a bit of a limitation with AI in terms of interpreting images and spitting out images.
Mhm.
We wouldn't be able to kind of do that right now. But if I actually come into the document, I actually haven't given myself access to this, but we've actually just released the ability to insert images in these documents as well. So you would be able to paste a kind of cash flow graph into a document that you wanted and export it with the cash flow graph as well. Um, what I would say is cash flow planning and modeling is definitely an area of interest for me. If I'm honest, I think cash flow planning is probably the most undervalued tool that financial advisors can give,
Yep.
just because it actually develops conversations in meetings and like you can actually visually show someone how on track they are to achieve their goals and you can really stress test in multiple different scenarios. So it's definitely an area of interest for me. But it's probably not in like the very immediate pipeline, is what I would say.
Yeah.
Um, Unless there's any other questions, I'll probably just crack on with
Yeah,
going
yeah.
through this
Sorry.
quickly.
Yeah.
Cool. So this document's now generated in line with the template structure that I've kind of uploaded into Marloo. The first thing to note is you can click into each section and you can view exactly what's been generated. Like so, I think things like this is all kind of standardized wording that doesn't change across the documents. And essentially, what it has the capabilities to do is to look across all of the source documents you've uploaded and extract all of the relevant information and map it into the report. But to take that one step further, it has the ability to look across all of those source documents. And if you're making a recommendation, it can link points between different documents. So, say, for example, someone says something in a meeting about they want to invest in high risk assets. And then in the risk profile questionnaire, they came back as, an 8 or a 9 out of 10. they're in two different documents, but Marloo can take those 2 points from different documents, link them together to formulate a rationale point within the end output. Like so, if I keep scrolling. Bear in mind, this is a little bit long just because of the template that I've actually given it is long. If you wanted the template to be clear and concise and shorter, it will match that structure in line with what you're currently doing. Like so. And of course, there will be a couple of things that you need to come in and amend. But essentially, what we're aiming to do is we don't think it's good enough to be able to just dump an AI report on someone and go, here you go in go and manually edit this document to get to what you want to. So again, it ties into integrating that kind of Ask Marloo functionality across
Yeah.
the product. If I come into any section, I can highlight anything that I want and I can instruct any kind of change. I could say something like make this shorter. It's going to read that selected bit of text and you can see it's just amended to now be shorter. I could be super more specific with what I'm looking for in terms of making the amendments. I can turn things into tables. I can make things bullet pointed, make it sentence narrative and the like. One additional thing that I would add is you can also run additional analysis inside of the chat. So if I upload a fund fact sheet in here, say I want to do some kind of fund analysis, I can say something like, how has this fund performed? It's going to read that document for me, and then it's going to pull out all of the information related to that file, like so. And essentially, once I've got this information in here, I can actually use it to input into the report. I can speak with Marloo about what I want to do next. A couple of things that we've got coming down the pipeline is the ability to actually turn this sort of data into AI generated images. So things like bar charts, line graphs, pie charts, and the like. So, maybe you've got an asset allocation table that you actually want to input into the report, but you want it in like a pie chart format. We'd be able to do that as well. Another thing we've got coming in the pipeline is the ability to actually pull all of the source documents you've used to generate this report directly into the chat as context. So I could literally come in and ask any question about the report in line with the source documents. It's not quite ready yet, but it is coming in due course.
Quick,
Um, sorry,
it's really interesting reading the tone and style of it. Presumably, you could change the tone and style per
exactly.
client. So if you've got a client who's like super chilled, you could tone change that. Or you got a client that is super analytical. You can change that as well.
To an extent, you probably wouldn't be able to do it like per client basis within a template unless you wanted loads of templates. But
Right.
because it's so easy to come in and actually just highlight something and make a change, if you go through the document and identify, oh, this is way too kind of like formal for this specific client, you could adjust it like so by just asking
Right.
Marloo to do it for you.
Right. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, again, it's just really about being able to flex the product in specific scenarios, I guess. And yeah, the final thing that I want to show you is just if I export this document, export it as a PDF. 1 second. And open this up. It's now got my kind of custom branding. It's got my header, my colors, the heading size, the fonts that I use, the line spacing that I want, um, the table formatting that I've set as well. This is exactly what it would look like when you export it out of Marloo. What I would say is there is actually a bit of a trade-off between generating AI content and getting it into Word. Main reason being for that is because you've got to appreciate that Microsoft Word is built on like years and years and thousands of lines of code. So it's quite hard to get it into the format, but it's definitely something that we're still working on and striving towards. Because for us, it's also again not good enough to just generate you an AI document and not have it in your style.
Yeah.
And so a couple of steps we've taken in that measure are you can now export with like a table of contents. You can include page breaks. So if I selected this, everywhere where there's a line denoted would actually just be a page break instead.
Yeah.
And something we've got coming over the next couple of weeks is also the ability to add your front cover page as well.
Yeah. Fabulous.
Um, but yeah, like that's probably the amount I'll show in the demo.
Got a
Yeah,
quick question from Paul.
yep.
Thank you, Paul. We use single fund solutions. As part of our CIP, we have a mapping document saying what each fund risk profile is, I'd like Marloo to prepare pie charts for showing how much they have at each risk level. Can you do that? He does it in Copilot.
Not yet, but again, as I mentioned in there, like we are looking at the ability to generate AI produced images and content.
Yeah,
And so that would probably tie in as part of that.
yeah.
I
Interesting.
can't really set a time frame on it, but it's something that we are looking at and playing around with.
I would imagine the more people who use this, the more questions you'll be getting around, can we do this? Can we do that?
Yeah,
And
100,
how
yeah.
quickly does it take to develop a new feature?
Firstly, 100%, and I think that's really important. We put a huge emphasis on listening to product feedback. We get feedback on a daily basis of like, can it do this or can it do that, like you just said. And I think my view and my role specifically in the company is actually taking a lot of that feedback, digesting the feedback, and like figuring out what's the roadmap look like in terms of what we do next.
Mhm.
We move incredibly fast. Like we launched in April 2025, and since then we've essentially built three complete features, i.e. the meeting notes, client record, and the document generation piece that all flow together. In the very immediate pipeline, we've got a task and reminders function in testing right now, with the key emphasis of that being it's automated, but it's also proactive. So you'd be able to ask Marloo to draft you emails, do things for those tasks specifically, but
Yeah.
also automatically complete them. We'd also got form filling coming in the pipeline as well. So automated form filling based off the context you've got on the client record. And we've got also got an email integration sync coming. So that will enable you to pull in context from your email correspondence, but it's two way. So it also enable you to send documents directly from Marloo to the client. So there are three things that we're working on. As I said, move incredibly fast. We, as I said, collect feedback on a daily basis. Where it makes sense, we implement it again very quickly.
Yeah, it's fascinating. The biggest, as I mentioned earlier, the biggest complaint advisors have that I see time and time again is that we've got all these disparate bits of kit dotted around the industry, and finally we're getting to a point where it's all coming together and everything talks to each other, which I think is just so clever.
Awesome. Yeah,
Long
completely agree.
overdue as well.
Yeah, completely agree.
So, how do people want to chat with you if they want to give it a go? How would they go about doing that?
Yeah, there's two ways. You can literally, it's a self-serve product, so you can literally sign up via the website. It's just app.gomarloo.com/sign up. On there, when you sign in, you can connect your calendar, and you can also request a demo. If you request a demo, you just pick a time that works for you. It will put it in with one of the team. It's a 30-minute demo. We'll go through probably a bit more in depth than what I've just showed on the call,
Hmm.
specifically how it fits into your workflows and things like that. Otherwise, you can just kind of drop me an email. So it's just jack@gomarloo.com. If you've got any questions, want to have a discussion or whatever, I'm always available. Well, I say always available, but I'm always willing to be available for a call.
Sure. And one final thing. If advisors are thinking, do I go with you guys? Do I go with somebody else? Yes, we're notwithstanding what we were talking about earlier about it's more about where do you want your business to be rather than the tool. But what is it about your AI solution that you think makes you pretty valuable to most advisors?
Yeah, I would put it into like two buckets. One is the product itself. So there's a couple of key differentiators, which is the customization, one, the ability to ask Marloo and integrate it across the entire product. And three, it's just general quality and speed and ease of use. Product super slick, easy to use, nice interface, that sort of thing. The second is actually kind of a bit more of the personal touch. So it's the customer support. It's the like we film a lot of instructional videos, we host webinars. It's all about education, especially in the AI space where, people don't have time to be sitting down and really like educating themselves on how to use AI. So I very much view that as our challenge is how can we one, get people up to speeds as quickly as possible, but two, actually educate people on how to do things. I would rather tell someone and explain to someone how to go and do it, and they go and do it much quicker in the future themselves,
Yeah,
rather than them have to rely on me to like, build them templates or whatever it might be, because that's what actually causes the bottleneck. So it's those two things there. It's the product and then also the customer support that we provide and the high touch
yeah,
relationships.
yeah. Fabulous. That's been really useful, and I hope, well, certainly will open a few people's eyes. Really appreciate that. We do like software that is slick and that works. Clunky software, no, thank you very much indeed. So, Jack, really appreciate you giving away your time today. Much appreciated. Thanks to everybody for
Awesome.
coming along. We will be putting the video out there. Everybody who's signed on, I'll be sending that to as well. So for now, thank you, Paul. Thank you, Jack, and we'll see you all soon. Thanks a lot. Take
Thanks,
care,
Phil.
everyone. Bye.